Hello and welcome to the Quick Bite, presented by the Skilled Workers Get Jobs NSF ATE grant. Today it's going to be talking about being inviting to all students and how to prepare for your classroom presentation. Think about this as setting a stage. Teachers are often somewhat performers, and we have students who are going to be watching us. And this is true if we're in a seated classroom or in a virtual classroom. And how do we properly prepare our materials so that when we get into classes, we are being inviting to all students? First of all, make sure that you have diverse role models when you do presentations. You want to not have just men doing traditionally male work, such as working on machines, or the inverse is also true if you teach early childhood or nursing. You want to make sure that you have male role models. And if you think about this, I teach computers, and if I say computer professional, who comes to mind? If you're like most people, you probably answered Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, or Mark Zuckerberg. If you're a white male, you have a lot of role models for IT. But if I asked you to name a famous woman in technology, would you be able to give a name and have a visual representation? Or if a student is a minority student, do you have examples? Make sure that when you use pictures and presentations, you include a diverse group of people as your subjects. Also, look at the books that you use carefully. And I realize that sometimes we don't get a choice of what book we're using. It is dictated or given to us by somebody else. But if you do have books, read their examples, look at the pictures, look at the case projects, and make sure that they are equally inviting to all students. And sometimes you can't tell a book by its cover. This book came out about 15 years ago now, but it sounds really great. Barbie, I can be a computer engineer. So you would get that and think, I'm giving a great role model for my child. But if you start to read it, first of all, it says when she's doing a game that she only does the design, she needs Stephen and Brian's help to turn it into a real game. And then they go, well, you're the one coding. Why would they think that? And she answers, because I'm a girl. Now, I also want to point out that if you look at the Barbie I Can Be books, there's only two of them in which Barbie is wearing glasses and has her hair pulled back. One is to be a computer engineer and the other is a veterinarian. So you want to make sure that books not only have a good cover, but that they actually tell the right story. And look around at your classroom environment, which might be bulletin boards, or it might be an online Moodle page or a website. And when you have pictures, you want to not only think about gender, but also you might want to think about age and looks. This was something that a company did, which stated, my team is great, everyone is smart, creative, and hilarious. It got a lot of viral feedback that was negative, and the statement was, why didn't you use a real engineer? The overall story was, if you were an attractive young female, you could not be an engineer. And using that stereotype is just as bad as only having males featured. And you also want to think about the language or the terminology that you use. This looks old, and a lot of you would say, well, that won't happen nowadays. Of you have entered the title of doctor for a customer that is female. Is this correct? However, as recently as 2015, a doctor was locked out of the women's changing room because the gym automatically registered everyone with doctor as male. When she asked for assistance from the staff, they told her that she would need to remove her title from her name in order to get access to the female locker room. Think about that. If you're a doctor, you must be a male. Ultimately, they did get it fixed, and she was able to use both the female locker room and keep her title. So, as you're working on things, avoid using gender-specific occupational titles. What this means is instead of fireman, use firefighter. Instead of policeman or policewoman, use police officer or things like that. And you can make any occupation gender neutral. Also, avoid expressions that could be viewed as patronizing. You should only use girls if you're really talking about groups of people under 10 years old. And if you're going to use ladies, then you would be calling the men gentlemen. You could use guys and gals. You just want to use equivalent speech and make sure it's not demeaning. And Think about the adjectives that you use for someone. If you really would not comment on a guy that, oh, you're a petite young thing, then you should never do it for a female either. There was a really good article in the New York Times on 2019 where the person said, I'm a professional. Calling me adorable is really an insult, and you just want to avoid it. And everyone has their own buzzwords, probably. I think of the word spunky. You know, if someone said, "Wow, you're really spunky," for me as a female, that's an insult of kind of I'm overbearing and taking, um, I'm not keeping in my place of being quiet. And mine is if I would use the same terminology for a male as female, that's one judgment call, but you might also ask people, how would you feel about it? I love to end presentations with a quote by Maya Angelou, and this is definitely one of my favorites as it pertains to a teacher. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This quick bite was brought to you by the Skilled Workers Get Jobs 2.1 grant. Funding was provided by the National Science Foundation, ATE, but this does not speak for the National Science Foundation. The views expressed are the views of the presenters. If you have any questions on this or any presentation, please contact me at the email listed. Thank you.